Hey, we're the first to last Nerdom. Uh, what we do is great, and but what there we go. I know, was going to get
Oh, you're good. You're good. You're good. You're good. You good. Do it again. Run it. Run it
hey,
again.
hey, we're the first to last Nerdom. What we do is great, but it ain't pretty, and,
No, it's not.
and definitely not pretty tonight. But yeah, we've had several takes, little
Yeah.
mishaps on both ends. But
Yeah. Well,
it
things.
happens.
Yeah, technical things there were going pretty great for a while, I guess. But it's funny how
Mhm.
I just had like I guess maybe that was just like all saved up because we were going so smoothly for so long. Maybe we won't.
Yep.
Maybe we'll have smooth sailings. But yeah,
So
like
maybe
Tom.
we're not great at what we do, and what we do isn't pretty.
Right. Right. Right on.
But hey, we're still growing. We're getting there. But
Yeah,
yeah.
no, we got a couple subscribers
Mm-hmm.
and a few comments in the
Yep.
last several months,
Mm-hmm.
which has been great. We are growing, and like Tom said, this is the you did that great intro. We're the first, last nerdum. We're always improving. Like I tried to do a little bit too much, I think, tonight with trying to do a new rig. And the funny thing is that I even tested it. I tested the setup here in the office, and then I tested it back out there because I had to screw with my
Mm-hmm.
network. Anyway, well, apparently that didn't work. So,
Yeah.
so here we are for take 4 or 5,000 or something like
Mm-hmm.
that.
What's the
uh,
saying goes? The plans of mutants and men often go astray.
yeah, I believe that's correct. Yeah, and
Uh,
before we get rolling too quick here on our main event, our weekly main event, we are the first, last nerdum, like Tom was saying, and we would, boy, we would sure love it if we could convince you to subscribe. I
mhm.
would say something. I have a note here that says something about some percentage of you out there watch but don't subscribe. So maybe we could get those numbers up as I see
Possibly,
it
yeah.
anyway, or a like or a comment, even a dislike. That's fine too.
Hmm.
We would love to engage with you all, but we have a growing back catalog, as I always love to say before we get
Hmm.
going here. And then I did see that some of our numbers went up a little bit,
Yep.
and I just wanted to kind of check to see where we were at with our Tenebrae, because oh, it is slowly moving. It's slowly
Yep.
moving
Hmm.
up the stack. But anyway, I
So.
don't think it's too far away from. I think it's maybe 10 more views away from being at the top
Hmm.
10 for sure.
Yeah.
Top five maybe even. But
Yeah.
boy, last week we had a lot of fun. I
Uh-huh.
know I did. And then this week, more importantly,
Yep.
so what are we doing this week,
Yeah.
Thomas?
I was just gonna say, yeah. Last week we ended our tour of Italy with
Yes.
Goodfellas, and it turned out pretty good. I promoted us on the Reddit channel for Goodfellas, and I thought I'd just add this in as a little Easter egg. They have two rules on their Reddit page. One is
Good.
don't rat out your friends, and the second is yeah. What is the other line in the movie? Don't rat on your friends, and keep your mouth shut. Those are the two rules on Reddit for the Goodfellas Reddit. So shout out to them. They let me post a lot of different. I tried to post on the channel on Reddit that would be specific for what we're discussing.
Right
I
on.
always get love from the Shutter Reddit and a few other smaller ones, but yeah, there's others that just shut me out and just say, hey, you can't post here. So I won't just badmouth those, but yeah, shout out to the good ones out there that let us kind of get the word out, and hopefully maybe we got a couple of subscribers from there. But yeah, we also talked about Free Comic Book Day, which we may touch on in our grab bag, which is our weekly discussion of various topics. But yeah, like Mike was saying, and I rudely interrupted him. This week we're talking about the X Men movies, to be more specific, and even more specific, we focused on X2, X Men United, and X Men Days of Future Past.
Yes,
So
sir.
we'd already seen these movies, but we did a rewatch and are maybe going to do a little bit of a deeper dive and maybe just talk about the X-Men universe as far as it goes with the movies, and maybe even compare it with a little bit with the comic books, and maybe even speculate what Marvel can do to further X-Men into the movies.
Yeah, at first I was like, I kind of just wanted to scratch an itch with this, and I know I kind of brought it up here, but we had better ideas to go with week after week after week, which is kind of how we do some loose planning. But all things being equal, the X2 and this one are because I was gravitating toward like picking Wolverine or whatever, and I'm kind of glad you were like, nah, no, do that one. Let's do X2, because
Mm-hmm.
this was the sequel for the first generation X-Men films,
Mm-hmm.
Days of Future Past was the beginning of the second generation, where the characters have been swapped out by different actors,
Mm-hmm.
and it sets up the scene. Yeah, I am curious to compare and contrast this a little bit because this is under
Yeah.
Fox, versus like what we're getting today, and in what we can kind of expect, like you were saying, from
Mm-hmm.
Marvel maybe, see what happens there. But
Yep.
yeah, right off the bat, I will say this is I kind of want to go in this direction, and then we'll see what you think. So like you had the X2, right, is like the first. It's very Hollywood, right? It's like it's very it doesn't really borrow from any specific X-Men storyline at all. It's kind of
Yeah.
mishmash of things. It's
Well, it's
created to be.
well,
Go ahead.
it is loosey goosey based on the Chris Claremont graphic novel, um, God saves, man kills.
Oh, okay,
Um,
okay.
so, so yeah, the whole thing
Yeah, that's
about
right. Yeah.
the government, wanting to a element of the government wanting to wipe out mutants because they see them as a threat. So yeah, much like, and we could get into it a little bit more. The Days of Future Past is based off of the two comic book series in the comic book. Called
Yeah,
Days of Future
yeah.
Past.
Chris
Sorry,
Claremont.
sorry.
And
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
and
Chris Claremont.
who also, yeah, and he's obviously very very prolific, very
Yep,
famous, very sought
yep,
after,
uh-huh.
legend in his own right. We're talking,
Yeah,
and John
Ye-
Byrne
yeah. John
did the
Byrne,
illustration for that too, right?
and he was a co-plotter. In the when Chris Claremont was working with John Byrne, they wrote together. I know Chris Claremont wrote the words, but I think John also had a say in how the story went, and they famously disagreed and with how Jean Grey met her in as Phoenix. But spoilers on a what
Oh
40
yeah.
year old comic, but
Right. Well,
but
yeah, God, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, that was 81, and we'll have the notes there. I'll look up when that run or the
but
numbers
yeah,
are. I think it was,
but
well, I'll
yeah,
look it up
I
in a
kind
little
of
bit.
derailed you on X2. But what were you saying about
No, no,
X2
no,
here?
no. I
Kind of
no, no.
Hollywood, kind of.
No, no. I love that. I love you, dude. You set the table perfectly. That was awesome. Because but my point still stands, which is like, it's loosely based on the kind of the
Mm-hmm.
storyline, and there's a lot of,
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of fast and loose, which is fine. It works. It works fine. There's no
Mm-hmm.
harm or foul. But to me, comparing these two, there is a substantial difference in quality, like of originality, if that kind of makes sense. Like I got
Mm-hmm.
more originality. Like I felt like I was watching more of the original storyline,
Mm-hmm.
versus like this kind of generic. We're still meeting people. We're still kind of establishing
Mm-hmm.
relationships with who the hell these X-Men are.
Mm-hmm.
Because this is Fox's second run at it, and they had to make it kind of more GA, so they couldn't just write for the nerds or write for the fans. And
Mm-hmm.
then and don't I'm not dogging it out at all. I'm just saying, like, of the two movies, you can you like the same archetypes are going on throughout. It's the
Mm-hmm.
mutants. It's how we deal with this problem or how humanity deals with it. It's
Mm-hmm.
like kind of difference, but I felt like between the two, I felt like I was closer to that issue, to that um, drastic contrast of like basically genocide, which X-Men is no stranger to touching on, especially
Hmm.
with the characters involved, Magneto and Professor X, and original storylines going back to Magneto being, you know, very involved in World War II, and
Hmm.
not such a nice way. It kind of sets the tone.
Hmm.
But in any case, like I felt like I was closer and more direct to that issue of annihilation. I guess maybe that's
Hmm.
because it was literally the setting
Hmm.
of the film. I'm not giving anything away, spoiler wise. I mean,
Yeah.
basically they're in the future and everything is friggin' wiped out, and they're like 3 seconds away from being wiped from existence. And
Oh,
then you kind of get
yeah.
this time traveling element, and there was a
Hmm.
little bit of time travel too in X2, but it was much smaller and more
Yeah.
focused on us, like where the
Yeah.
timeline didn't
Hmm.
derail or whatever, So
Yeah.
that was kind of interesting too that we could get into. But
Yeah.
I just was thinking your thoughts, kind of pulling back on what my original question was. Did you kind of feel like X2 was like that kind of, you can tell it was made by Hollywood, whereas the other one, Days of Future Past, or it was a little bit more. I don't know. It felt like it took a little bit more chances. I feel like
Yeah. Yeah.
than
No.
like
The.
X2.
Mhm.
Considering the content and the subject matter.
Yeah. Well, the director and the co-writer for both was obviously Bryan Singer, which we may or may not get into his demise in the industry.
Right.
But yeah, he did both. Maybe he had a little bit more free reign with Days of Future Past, but
I
yeah,
think he did.
yeah. Since our channel has nerd in the name, I feel it my duty to nerd out a little bit.
Huh.
Um, it before I go off on my nerd tangent. As far as you, was the movies your first experience with X Men, or was it the cartoon, or the comics?
Oh,
What was
oh
your?
God, no, no, no. My very first origin story for where I met the X-Men, or where the X-Men and I met, I should say, is when I was 9, 10, 11, 12, reading the
Mhm.
comic books, like getting that as a birthday present from my grandparents. They would gift me a subscription to whatever friggin' title I was like really excited about and
Mhm.
could tell my parents. I always and then we didn't live by close enough to stores all the time, but at one point around 11, 12, the 10, 11, 12, we lived in a big enough city, and we were just down the street from the grocery store, and I have fond memories of walking down to the grocery store by myself, because it was
Mhm.
just a short little bit. They're a different world, uh, more trusting world,
Mhm.
and go, spend my allowance or scoop up my pennies, nickels, and dimes, and my, whatever chores I could get from allowances or little odd jobs here that I could, get my
Mhm.
own little bit of money, not much,
Mhm.
but that X-Men, and then the trading cards. And I was big into the trading cards, and I loved them, loved collecting them.
Mhm.
Just kind of endless hours of reading them and talking to friends with them, and so
Mhm.
totally nerding out there. And then later on, was we were blessed with X-Men, the the animated the series on Saturday morning cartoons, where it ran, and I fell in love with that. And then so like when this came out, I was really happy with it. I remember. I just remember kind of like, do you remember the very first Avengers movie? Like when did you go to the theater to see it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you remember like when did people whoop or cheer or clap or whatever, like when they kind of show the Avengers kind of in that iconic scene for the first time? Did anybody make any kind of noise, or like
No,
when Hulk punched the that big thing?
I was in a bit of a transition. I was moving from St. Louis to Arkansas while it came out, so
Okay,
I
right.
saw it in Arkansas when I it was on the tail end of its theatrical run. So I saw it in the dollar theaters. So yeah,
Gotcha, gotcha.
there might have been a whoop, or maybe it was someone having flatulence in the theater. But no, there wasn't. But yeah, my first experience with it was with when I was in kindergarten. I don't know if you could pull up the cover for Giant Size X-Men #1, but I have a little story to tell, which may be a little interesting. Um,
I'm pulling that up here while you
yeah.
while you.
But yeah, so I was in kindergarten, and we obviously I wasn't a huge reader at that point, but we had to we had some album done out of construction paper that we had free reign to put what we wanted on the cover of it.
Hmm.
And I don't know if the comic book was there in the school, or if my mom got it for me. But I remember distinctly cutting up this cover and placing the X-Men on my construction cover for my little book. And I don't even know what the book was, but I was fascinated by these characters. And those of you out there that know this comic book and know its value, the thought of me cutting it up as a small child probably makes you cringe quite a bit. But but I did, and I remember looking. I was fascinated by these characters. You know. This exotic black woman with this wild white hair, and
Right.
this Colossus
Oro.
guy with all made of metal, and this guy with claws. But yeah, I remember, and I remember those poses. Um, and I had a flashback a few years ago of this. So like, like a trauma victim or something, digging back into the past. But I remember that, and I was like, is that the cover? I mean, is that the issue that I had? Because those are the poses that I remember on my my little booklet. And I looked at when that came out and when I would be in kindergarten, and it matches up. So I was like, okay, yeah, that must have been the issue, because those are the poses I remember. Because if you cut them out, the only ones that you really could put in fully on there on your cover was Colossus, Wolverine, and Storm, and I remember those being on there. So, but
That's
yeah,
awesome.
I don't know where I got it. And then later on, when I started collecting comic books, the first one I started collecting was Spider Man, and it was quickly followed by the X Men. Maybe that memory of me looking at them in kindergarten made me think of getting it then. But I got in during the Chris Claremont run, and I loved it. Now, when the movies came out, I wasn't a big fan of them, to be honest with you. I know you said
Really?
you were. I didn't like that they're all in leather. It looked like they were going out
Yeah.
for an S&M party or something.
That
Um,
that's exactly what I mean by like how it's just like a little bit more polished, I guess
mhm,
is what my point was. Like, and I do remember
mhm,
like Wolverine, but like I do remember being critical inner wise. Like I was
mhm.
pleased that I was just happy that there was an X-Men movie and they didn't fuck it up, to be honest with you.
Yeah, yeah, and
But
mhm,
inwardly, like one of the cringe things for me was, like Wolverine was like Wolverine, but not really.
yeah.
You
They
know,
they
it
got
like
the
it
they
didn't
got the
give you
right.
it.
Mhm.
Yeah,
the
go ahead.
they barely got the actors right. Like in that first movie, James
I agree.
Marsden's passable for Cyclops.
I
I don't.
don't, I did not like Cyclops in this movie at all.
Yeah,
Every
yeah. He
time I see
wasn't.
his
Yeah,
face, it takes me out of the movie a little bit. I'm
yeah,
just being honest. Like, I mean, I'm
yeah.
not trying to like rail or dog it out. Like,
Hmm.
I appreciate the movie, but like every time I see him, I just think he's too whiny,
Hmm.
too overacty. I don't know. There's just something about it
Hmm.
that I just don't like
Yeah.
it. So I
Well,
agree with you
and
there.
yeah, yeah. the uh, yeah, in Storm, Halle Berry is not Storm.
I was
When
all
you
right
think
with
of
her.
no, when I think of Storm, I think of an African goddess with this huge presence, very much in control of herself, who could lead the X Men. I
Yeah,
don't
she
I
could
don't
do a
see
lot of
that.
leading.
Halle Berry does not have that. She may kind of look a little bit like Storm, but no, she is not Storm. She is definitely not Storm, in my mind. So yeah, the only one in the first movie I think they got right was 100% was Wolverine, but you had him in this S&M gear. Yeah, he needed to be in his Wolverine
I
costume.
I
I know that they thought that would be silly looking, but come on, you light it correctly. I mean, the Batman costume's going to look silly if you don't light it correctly.
Well,
Um,
it'll take you out of the movie, and you'll be like, God damn it, I'm watching a kid's comic book. You know, at worst, you know, I mean,
mhm,
it can't. I mean, it can do that. I agree with you. Like for a huge, and surprisingly, One that I am just more annoyed with, and I don't know why. Um, Patrick Stewart, I was unquestionably like, okay, you just accept it.
Yeah,
Like that kind of
yeah,
makes
he
sense.
he
But
he
you know,
did
as
Charles Xavier good.
yeah, and he did all right. No, he did
Uh-huh.
perfectly fine. But like, kind of the thing, I'll be honest with you, like, I don't. I actually like the younger version of the Days of Future.
Yeah,
I like that
yeah.
Charles way more
Oh yeah,
than Patrick Stewart in general,
Right.
because like I feel like Patrick Stewart, there's just kind of like this distance between you and
Yeah,
him, like where
yeah.
it's just like, he looks. I don't know. I'm not trying to. I don't know what it is, but I agree. I think we can agree Hugh Jackman was definitely, but it still kind of was like bound up Wolverine. It still wasn't like,
Yeah. Well,
like.
and and sure, and sure, um, Xavier was the kind of instructor, maybe the hot father figure to the team, but you know he and what Patrick Stewart had that Xavier had was he's bald, but Xavier I believe in at least the comic books he was younger than Patrick Stewart in it.
Way
Now,
younger, way
yeah, way
younger,
younger.
way younger.
Because he had a thing for Jean Grey. I mean, they in the comic books it was hinted at, especially during Chris Claremont's run, that he he was he was thinking about making the moves on her. He Xavier is a player. You may not know it, but he is a player.
Yeah, no, well, I think that that was, you got more of more human version of more relatable version, I guess is a better way to
Mhm.
put it, with not Patrick Stewart, but the other gentleman here.
Yeah, James
Um,
McAvoy did a great job. Yeah, him and
I
Michael Fassbender was a really good Magneto.
yeah,
The first class X-Men First Class, we didn't rewatch that, but that one did a great job of reintroducing it and kind of bringing in that nostalgia of a '60s, since X-Men first came out during the '60s, kind of recapturing it. The whole thing with the movies is they've kind of played loosey goosey with the timeline. Obviously, you kind of have with the comic books, you could kind of time passing isn't um, really talked about in the comic books. They'll talk like maybe something that happened several years ago happened a few months ago because the characters don't really age much like in comic strips. The kids always stay young in the kid comic strips. But yeah,
right,
so the time is sort of malleable. Magneto could be from have experiences from the concentration camps,
right,
but be kind of white haired and still virile in the latest issue of the current X-Men comic book. We don't think much about it, but when it's in a movie, you really do have to kind of bolt down the time frame and make it at least make a little bit of sense. So they were handicapped in that sense with how they did it, which I think they did a good job. Obviously they had to age up Xavier and Magneto for the movies, since most of the they were taking place in the 2000s. But yeah, I understand their conundrums. But the things that should have been an easy thing to do, like make their costumes more like the costumes in the comic book, they didn't do. They, like I said, they went for the sleek. And also, if you think that in the early 2000s, the the superhero movie wasn't proven yet. Sure, you had a
right,
big success with Batman, but it quickly fell under when Joel Schumacher took over. Same thing with Superman. Started strong with the series and then petered out. So Hollywood still had they weren't they're real hesitant as far as going full in on
although,
your superhero movies.
oh, they bury their dead for sure. They
Mhm.
bury their dead, and then you don't see or hear from it for a while, usually, until, like, they get the courage up
Yeah.
to do it again. Yeah,
Now,
this one, like,
mhm.
none of the. I agree with you. Kind of the, well, definitely, the you say you call that S&M gear. I would call it like it looks like they're all ready to ride on a racetrack motorcycle. Looks
Yeah,
like they're ready
that's yeah.
to go motocrossing or something
Yeah,
with a helmet.
X and Furious, the
Yeah,
X and the Furious.
yeah. So
Uh,
it does kind of take you out sometimes. It's like can be kind of not annoying.
no,
I would say, but like,
with Wolverine in that outfit, if he put over a gimp mask, it wouldn't be out of place, would it?
I mean,
That's all I'm
kinda
saying.
wears
That's
like
all I'm saying.
like
That's
that,
all I'm
that,
saying.
yeah. Yeah, the thing, the
And don't
acting, I
worry,
think,
we're keeping things PG. That's as far as I'll go in those
yeah,
crazy
yeah,
comments there. But
yeah.
yeah, that's. Mhm.
Yeah, I think that the acting was better in Days of Future Past, in my
Yeah.
opinion. It was more solid and it had more relatableness. There are some kind of things that like you kind of were taking out a little bit, but it worked a lot better than I. Well, I mean, there's nothing wrong with the other one either, but it's just like I
Yeah,
got more
the
enjoyment out of Days of
X
Future Past
yeah
than I did X2.
X2 it benefited from introducing Nightcrawler. I think Alan Cummings did a great job as
Oh yeah,
Nightcrawler.
absolutely.
He was made for the role. I was reading the little trivia on it, and at one point they were considering Neil Patrick Harris as Nightcrawler, which I don't know if that would have worked.
Maybe
But
I
yeah,
don't know. He's a good actor. He has
yeah,
range. He has
yeah.
good range. You
But I
never
think
know. You never know.
Alan Cummings could naturally speak German, so he was the better choice. And Nightcrawler is one of my favorite characters. But yeah, I again getting back to casting, I think they picked a horrible person for Rogue. I did not like um, Ellen Page as Kitty Pryde. It just doesn't work for me. Or I guess
That
what
was in Days of
is
Future Past.
yeah. Oh,
That's who I
it's
thought that
okay.
was.
Yeah,
Ellen. Yeah, Ellen
Ellen
Page.
Page.
Yeah.
Yeah, or I guess he's changed his name now. Elliot Page.
Well, it still says
Yeah.
it still says
Oh,
Ellen Page, so I'll still just
oh,
reading it.
as well, it's credited as Ellen Page, but
Right.
he's now Elliot Page.
Right.
Don't want to dead name. It gets kind of crazy with people that have presence before they've transitioned. So we're not trying to dead name anybody, but yeah, he is now
No, this
Elliot
is the
Page.
yeah, this is the particular individual that played that character, Kitty Pryde.
Yeah,
Yep.
Kitty Pryde, which I didn't really care for uh,
I
that portrayal. The actor was good in the movie. It just didn't fit my. Again, I've been a fan of X-Men since 5 years old. So
right.
my bar for excellence is way higher than your average person. Your average person is going to be cool with it with a lot of things, but
Right.
now I can separate. I'm not going to say this is not my X-Men. I had fun with the movies. I take them for what they are. But if I wanted to dive into X-Men, I'll pull out my issues of the original X-Men comic book
Sure.
written by Chris Claremont. Obviously, this version of X-Men that's mainly focused on is Chris Claremont's X-Men. Now he
No
did.
doubt.
Now Stan Lee and other people like Roy Thomas did write X-Men prior to Chris Claremont, and the original team was a little bit different than what Chris Claremont created with the giant size X-Men #1, which was a revamp of X-Men. The X-Men title was never popular until Chris Claremont took it on. The Marvel was so, if you could think about it, since X-Men's such a huge property now, back when Chris Claremont took it over, no one else wanted to write it. It was a dead title. Uh,
Not
Hey,
popular at all.
right, and when he started writing it, it was coming out bi-monthly, so every 2 months, because they
Oh
really
wow.
they weren't real they were real iffy on the sales of it. But he was such a his stories were such strong stories that word of mouth got out. Hey, this is a good title. It gained popularity. Kept gaining more and more popularity, became a monthly title, and exploded into the multiple titles that it
Right.
did turn out to be. Chris Claremont for a time was able to write every single title of the X-Men, the multiple titles, um, and kind of have a tight reign over the story as far as what he envisioned it. Now, Marvel eventually realized, hey, we could expand it even further out if we had other people come in as writers, and kind of started edging Chris Claremont out to the point, where he either he quit, or I don't know if they let him go, or what how that happened. But yeah, once he kind of got detached from X-Men, I kind of stopped reading it for a time because I thought he was the heart and soul of X-Men. But I've been kind of slowly going back and rereading reading those for the first time during. I think he left during the early '90s. Going back and reading those other titles, and there's something there for those as well. But again, if I ever go back to the X-Men, it's going to always be Chris Claremont's run on
Sure,
it.
right. Yeah, I agree with you. Like the Katie Pride. There's just like some like the small and petite frame kind of works because Katie Pride is kind of a small and petite character, so I get that kind of works. But the
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I guess I just didn't understand. I guess I didn't understand the powers because I thought that Kitty Pride could only go through walls or whatever, and if you held on to her, you could go with her.
Yeah.
But the time travel consciousness thing kind of is a leap for me, to
Yeah,
be honest.
it doesn't work.
Um,
It works as a
it
I guess
doesn't
McGovern
ma-
or
does it
whatever in this.
yeah,
Yeah,
and I get it, like whatever, it's all friggin' fiction. I get it. I'm not trying to be super
yeah,
nerdy about this, but like
right.
it didn't work for me because it didn't make any goddamn sense.
Yeah,
Like
there's
as far
no.
as like Omega level mutants go, like bullshit. Like, like I don't think so. No,
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
was
You
not dealt
can.
with this to my
Mhm.
taste, I guess, if I'm gonna be nerd
Right.
about it. If I'm
Well,
gonna be uber nerd.
again, this Days of Future Past is based off of comic book, and but again, very
So
loosely.
it worked.
It's
Yeah, it still worked.
right.
It still worked.
Well, it worked. Now in the movie that Wolverine is in the future. He travels back to the past. Now, fun fact: their future was 2023. So those future
Oh,
scenes that we're seeing are in 2023. So it's kind of good that we went ahead and looked at this movie this year because it's kind of timely. Um, but in the comic book, um, the it's Kitty Pryde that gets shot into the future. So she's in the present, but gets thrown into the future as the movie goes into the past, and she gets into the future where the Sentinels are have taken over, and she meets Rachel Summers for the first time, which is Scott and Jean's daughter, which doesn't work for this movie because those characters are dead in this version of of the X Men, but it works in the comic book. But yeah, so there's kind of a different swap there, and then the future that she jumps to is 2013 in the comic book, which is the year they started filming this Days of Future Past. Which is kind of a fun fact with time and whatnot.
yeah. The actors I are ones that I absolutely love.
Yeah,
Michael Fassbender and James McAvoy. Right. Hopefully, I'm not
and I
butchering
think
that.
I think Jennifer Lawrence does a better job than
Oh
Rekha
my.
Romaine Stamos.
I was kind of tight on that, but I will say that I really enjoyed Jennifer Lawrence. I genuinely am a fan of her acting. And I think we gave a little bit of a pass because she said some goofy words during an interview, but she recovered. I'm not going to carry that forever. But
Right.
I did enjoy her acting on here more. Again, I felt more relatable to these people than on X2. X2 was it was a little bit more distance.
Hmm.
Like it just kind of was a little bit. I believe more of what was going on the screen in Days of Future Past than I did in X2. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah.
I still enjoy both, but I
Yeah.
got more bang for my buck out of this, and it
Yeah.
aged very well. But
Yep.
X2, I'm not gonna say it didn't age well, but I mean,
It
it was all
is.
right. It's all
It
right. I
is
mean,
what it is. Yeah. Like I said,
nothing. nothing to take you out of the film. Don't get me wrong. Like, but
Mm-hmm.
the quality level here are
Mm-hmm.
just. It's
Yep.
there's a difference here in quality,
Yep. Yeah.
in my opinion.
Yeah, and those original X-Men movies, um, they are what they are. I was never invested into them. I was invested in the comic books. So the movies were something to watch on a Saturday night. But nothing to be really invested in. So I know there was a big uproar with the third X-Men movie because it didn't take anything really seriously. It just kind of threw everything up against the wall, and just had a stupid time with it. And to
Are you
be
saying
honest,
it was kind of like the Batman, like when Arnold Schwarzenegger was Mr. Freeze?
yeah,
Kind of.
yeah, yeah. I I had a name for him back in the day, but I don't think it's PC anymore. So I'll have to tell you that offline. But
Sure.
but the but yeah, I absolutely loved the Last Stand, the third X-Men movie, for being the stupid movie that it was. Because I wasn't invested in these characters. I did not. I was okay with them. I didn't have this, oh, you're ruining my X-Men kind of feel to it. I already had that with the first movie,
Right.
but not real strong because like I said, I'm not, you know, it's like I always go back to Stephen King's phrase, they ruined your books. No, they're still on the shelf,
Yep.
so you can
Yep.
always you take the movie for what it is. You don't accuse it for ruining your childhood or whatever. Yeah, if you let something have that type of control over you is kind of crazy. But yeah, they were okay. So I did enjoy the just the stupid fun of the third movie. Because there was something going on every minute in that movie, and it was just crazy and stupid, and didn't take itself seriously. So I did enjoy it for definitely what it was.
Yeah,
Um,
I hear you. I definitely I get more bang for my buck out of the second generation of X-Men movies, if
yeah,
I'm being honest.
yeah,
There's nothing wrong with the first ones that came on the scene.
mm-hmm,
But then and we didn't really talk about it, but like Wolverine is kind of a disappointment. Like since we're already covering this arc here and we're
mm-hmm,
relaying our thoughts and feelings, but
mm-hmm,
I got more out of this than I did X2, and I remember seeing
mm-hmm,
it in the theater and being excited. But I kind of just had that last little bit of like enthusiasm, like the difference between dressing up as friggin' Wolverine and going to see the stupid movie as a really jazzed nerd. That's was missing for me. Like I
mm-hmm,
was happy, but
mm-hmm.
I had quibble with
Did you
some
did
of
you
the
did you have your leather get up
no,
for Wolverine?
back then I was not into motorcycle riding as I am today. But even then, I don't think I would wear that for my gear because, man, you gotta be able to breathe. And
Mm-hmm.
there's a way better gear that you can wear. It's well, I guess it depends on what kind of riding you're doing too. If
Mm-hmm.
I guess if you're about like 5 seconds away from showing up on the tarmac and taking off, yeah, sure, whatever. But
Yeah, yeah, I did.
yeah, the,
Yeah, it sounds like I'm trashing all these movies. I did enjoy X-Men First Class. I really enjoyed that one. I did definitely enjoy Days of Future Past. It's by no means a perfect movie in the eyes of the nerd that I am. But it does a way better job of capturing at least the spirit of the X-Men with this. It's definitely has that, and there's also the you do have your Easter eggs that those member berries is, oh, there's
they did, but it
Blink,
was
there's
tasteful.
there's Warpath, Warpath's there, and Bishop, and oh my gosh.
Right.
So yeah, there are those moments, and yeah, in my favorite segment in the movie, if you took it out, I'd probably rate the at least the movie one rank lower is the Quicksilver segment of the movie. That part
Oh,
was,
you didn't
I
like
loved
that?
it. No, I loved it. I loved it.
Oh,
If you
okay.
didn't have that in it, I would rate it downwards,
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
because that
I agree with
that
with
added a
that.
whole element to it, and I loved when that version of Quicksilver showed up in the Scarlet Witch series. Now they do something with it that I didn't like. In the reveal towards the end of the series, which I won't spoil since people maybe haven't seen that yet,
But
but
essentially,
yeah,
something important was changed in a different kind of way, as opposed
right,
to
yeah,
just being
the
generic about
context
it.
of it, yeah,
Oh,
um,
God damn it!
yeah, yeah, it's
This is
but
why I keep my distance from new Marvel stuff.
yeah, and there's a few cameos in Days of Future Past. They have Chris Claremont shows up as I think a reporter in the background. Lin
Mm.
Wen, which is one of the was a writer before Chris Claremont stepped in. He's in it as well. John Byrne says that he wasn't asked to be in it. He said, but he would have refused if they had offered it to him because he doesn't like the X-Men movies. He said that if he had been in it, he would have felt like Carrie in the prom scene of the Carrie movie. So uh, to maybe give you an idea what he thought of the movies.
Yeah, I think the reason why there's just a little bit better experience for me between these two is because it was closer to a original storyline.
Yeah, yeah.
They this just brings back now how to now and we'll about ready to get into this part to compare it to nowadays, but before we get there, I just thought that there's something to be said for that. You had a competent director, you had good casting, not great
Hmm.
casting. I would say it's good casting.
Yeah.
They carry a lot of weight. They do a lot of great moves. Ian McKellen, I always love as
Oh, looks like
Magneto, and
Mike froze up. Hopefully he'll be.
well, actually, it was you. It's your screen just. Maybe if I hide him, maybe. Well, I'm sure he'll come back on. Oh, it's black now. Well, I'll filibuster here and talk a little bit about what I was just going on about. Ian McKellen, I love as Magneto. He always does a great Magneto. And all right, here we go. Yep, so you're back. Yeah, I was just saying, I was just going into how I love that Ian McKellen is Magneto.
Hmm.
And of course, I already said that I dig Fassbender. But for me,
Hmm.
what I do love about as X-Men goes on, I love that the Magneto character gets more violent and they get more okay with showing that level of like menace
Hmm.
that he's capable of. I love
Yeah.
that. I love that because like that's the real Magneto, and the real Magneto in the comics. Well, it depends on what version, I guess. He's either
Hmm.
like immaculately reasonable and rational in certain contexts, or
Hmm.
he is dedicated to his ideals and he is ruthless.
Hmm. Well,
Something that Charles is not, which
yeah,
is kind of funny.
yeah.
But I get that.
He's
I
yeah.
always love seeing him. I have no quibble with old
Hmm.
Magneto or young Magneto at all in any of
Right.
the films.
Yeah, yeah. Magneto is on the level of Doctor Doom with as with Fantastic Four, as with Magneto, as with the X Men. They both sort of have their ideals, and they both believe that they are correct. The Magneto is fighting for mutant kind. He has very little sympathy for the Homo sapiens out there. It's all about the Homo superiors. So as he calls them. But yeah, it's like I said, I think if I was to pick out my favorite two movies of the whole X Men universe, it would probably be First Class and Days of Future Past.
Interesting.
I like Logan, but I don't think hold it in as high regard as a lot of people do. Not that
Hmm.
it's not a good movie. It's definitely a good movie. I just
I,
it's not truly an X-Men movie. It's a Wolverine movie, an old Logan story. So
yep.
um,
Old man Logan. Yep.
yeah, so it's it's not even really a superhero movie to a certain extent. Overall, it's maybe more of more of a western than a a superhero movie.
I hold it in high regard. I don't watch it. It's not in my rotation as much as something else. Like for example, I'll probably see Logan every 5 years or so, something like that. You
Hmm.
know, I really don't see it any more frequent than that. And usually, if it's on, it's like, oh, that's cool. I haven't seen that for a minute. But the other
Yeah.
ones, um, I really like Apocalypse. I love
Hmm.
that because I think they hit the mark on that. I really enjoyed that one. And then the
Hmm.
Dark Phoenix one, I don't think I've seen that one, to be honest, or it's been a really long
Yeah.
time. But everything before then I saw, and I really enjoyed Days of Future Past. I remember seeing this in the theater too,
Hmm.
and being like, all right, I'm down. This is cool. I
Hmm.
don't think I saw. Well, I think I saw Apocalypse in the cheap theater, like
Hmm.
after it kind of was
Yeah.
petered out of the main theaters.
Yeah.
But
And
yeah,
mhm.
I like the second generation of X-Men more than the first generation.
what what surprised me about Days of Future Past when I was reading about it is that it was made for $200 million and made for or $700 million. This movie doesn't look cheap, so I
No
mean, you
kidding.
can make a quality big sci-fi superhero movie for $200 million. What's Marvel doing with these? You know,
That's
you
a
know,
good point.
700 $900 million movies that has to make 2 billion to make a profit.
So it's
Come
funny
on.
you bring that up because this begs the question. Who is a better steward of these properties? If it's not, and the thing that I think you've echoed this quite clearly. You even given like broad brushstrokes of what you would do if you were king for a day,
Hmm.
and you could redo, like bring back X-Men or introduce X-Men, and do it this way, and then you can kind of essentially do the same Avengers build up,
Hmm.
but using the X-Men, and like,
Yep.
let's give the Avengers a rest for a little bit. Let's switch over here to X-Men and see what, because there's, come on, man. I mean, I just like
Yeah.
it drives me up a wall. And I listened to the Flashcast a couple nights ago or whatever, and they were kind of talking about this a little bit, about how when you deviate from a storyline, a bona fide storyline that has been market tested, had art behind it, and you bring it to the big screen or whatever, what have you, you're gonna probably be more than fine, and you have a very good product no matter what.
Hmm.
But I don't think we're well past the quality period of Marvel, and I don't know if it's just fatigue or
Hmm.
the superhero genre is just kind of
Yeah.
running out
Yeah.
of gas. I don't. I,
I
I,
think.
I don't know. I just don't. I don't know.
Yeah, I think. Well, as things get bigger, I think there's more fingers in the pie and more people wanting to
No, that's
give their
true.
2 cents worth in. Now, X
Well,
Men. It's X Men is a no brainer to bring back to the Marvel universe under Disney. I mean, it's got built-in diversity. You don't have to upset anybody by changing somebody
I
because
mean, literally,
there's representation all throughout the team. Um,
this is what drives me up a wall. Like literally, you can put a modern twist on this, and nobody's gonna bat an eye if you
mhm,
do it correctly.
yep. And
Nobody, nobody's gonna argue with it. You're just gonna
mhm,
accept it, like
yep.
like it should be. Oh my god,
Yeah, well,
it's so frustrating.
my favorite era of the X Men is when I started reading, and when I started reading, Storm was the leader of the X Men, and I had no problem with that as a young male that should have been raging against that, with how people were how people picture us back in the day,
Right, like
but
because
how
we're some cavemen or something.
yeah, exactly.
Just
No
super.
women be leader in my comic, but but I was perfectly fine with that. And the person I identified most in the comic book was Kitty Pryde, which she was my age at the time. I was able to identify with a Jewish 13-year-old girl from New York, or no, her character was from Chicago, um,
Right.
and I was able to identify with her. So that I mean that the whole garbage of you have to have somebody that looks like you to identify with in a comic book is crazy. If the character is well written and their emotions are real,
and their
can
development
yeah, in the
for and
development
around them, and they're
mhm.
relatable. Yep.
Yeah, yeah, and even though they're struggling with being a mutant, you can identify the fact of her struggle with the
Right.
struggle of yourself being a young teenager and in middle school. That whole frustration of feeling like a mutant in middle school. So yeah, so yeah, I don't give too much credence to we need to have and it's good to have everybody a little bit of everybody in things, and that's what was cool about the X-Men is was the team very was made up of very diverse people from around the world coming together and forming a tight knit team that was a family, no matter the fact that they were from such divergent places, and that they had and he didn't they didn't all think alike either. There was conflict between Wolverine and say Storm and how to do things. Their culture and the way they thought played a part of their character. Like all families, they do have arguments, so that sometimes almost breaks the family. But yeah, so that whole element, I think they got closer to that with Days of Future Past, with the development of the characters and showing them to be how they are somewhat in the comic book. But
Right.
yeah, like I said, that it should be a no brainer for Disney Marvel to get the X-Men rolling, and I think whoever the guy that's spearheading the X-Men '94 cartoon sounds like, from interviews that I've read, it sounds like he has a good grasp on how he wants to do the X-Men, and it's going to be rooted in the past and the previous iterations of X-Men. So we'll see. I was never a big fan of the cartoon. I didn't actually watch it because at that point I was a bit older, and I was a little above cartoons at that point. I thought so. So yeah, I'd never really dived much into the cartoons. Again, it was the comic books that were were my go to if I wanted the X Men.
Yeah, and this kind of goes back to what when we were doing the watching the Dune trailer. Goes back to creative decisions, and I don't you don't need to necessarily buck a trend, or like, I don't understand this fascination with disregarding history, and then I don't understand that. But this I again, I enjoyed the hell out of this one. Makes me want to go watch more. That's what it's supposed to do. you know
Right.
Maybe not necessarily, well, probably X3, just because, well, why not, but definitely I want to go back and watch Apocalypse,
Mm-hmm.
and I kind of want to go back and see the Dark Phoenix too. But who knows, like, we're rolling up on essentially summer. Summer
Mm-hmm.
is it's we're already in summer, essentially. Yeah, maybe a few weeks before the kids get out, but
Yep.
I mean, we already they already kicked it off with Guardians of the Galaxy 3.
Yep.
I will not be seeing that in the theater. Not because I despise it, or don't like it. I just don't have time, and I'm just gonna watch it on streaming or rent it.
Yeah.
But for all intents and purposes, like, I wish we had more movies like this. More movies like this, like, than not. But I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. There was.
Uh,
It
I
didn't
just don't-
suffer.
I don't understand. Like, I just don't understand what the hell they're doing over there. I
Mm-hmm.
will say this. I am one of the rare nerds probably that really enjoyed the hell out of the What If series,
Mm-hmm.
season one, and I am gonna probably watch season two, because I love that concept
Mm-hmm.
and the thing that kind of, and I said this back when we kind of sort of talked about it. We didn't really review it, but we talked about it. Um, that is the perfect vehicle for doing all kinds of crazy, goofy shit. If you want to see,
Mm-hmm.
like, if you want to be goofy or crazy or wacky, even, like,
Mm-hmm.
Disney loves a little bit of that wackiness in their
Right.
stuff. There's no reason why you can't have, like, most of What If is going to be throwaway, right? Okay, we all
Mm-hmm.
kind of get that. Um, but that doesn't mean that you can't have, like, a few Marvels in them and
Hmm.
like really start playing with these friggin' concepts of
Yeah.
you're already playing that game high risk with Spider-Man and you were rewarded because
Hmm.
people liked that was probably been the most successful Phase 4 movie I think was the
Yeah.
Spider-Man like
Oh
with
yeah. Yeah, and that
Doctor
wasn't
Strange.
really wasn't. Oh, I guess it was Phase 4, but yeah, I mean, it kind of stood apart a little bit from it. But yeah, and another good thing about these X-Men movies is that they don't get all jokey one-liners that the new brand of Marvel movies are suffering. And I guess our first taste of what maybe to come will be in the form of the Deadpool 3 movie. Um,
Yes.
it's on my radar, but off to the side. I don't have any expectations for the movie. So I I'm okay with the Deadpool movies. I know a lot of people love those movies, and Deadpool's their
Right.
thing. He's never been my thing. He's an all right character.
I think he's all right.
Kind of interesting, but
I don't clamor for it or anything. Like I
right.
am excited that to let's put it this way, compared to what the Drac that we've gotten thus far for
Mm-hmm.
quality, I'm excited from that standpoint because you can't mess that up because Ryan Reynolds is like Tom Cruise and other folks who understand what the fans want and can weave that and
Mm-hmm.
do something new and unique and original and kind
Mm-hmm.
of and do their own thing.
Yeah.
And Wolverine kind of has a few kind of cracks, and he has that in the comic books too. But I think it's tastefully done in Days in Future Past because he does. There's kind of like a couple scenes like where when Magneto kind of wigs out, kind
Mm-hmm.
of spazzes out on the airplane when they're flying over to
Mm-hmm.
Paris. I'm not really spoiling anything. He kind of like gets it like the metal around him starts reacting and he's like having a temper tantrum basically, and he's like
Mm-hmm.
making the plane making a mess everywhere. And Wolverine after that kind of escapade, Wolverine's like, hey, you want to clean that up? Or you want to get to cleaning it up? Like
Yeah.
that's the kind of crack that he would do in a comic book for
Right. Yeah.
Wolverine.
Yeah.
Like, and I think Hugh Jackman also had we also had the benefit of him getting better in that role. Period.
Yeah.
To like where he really connected, and it totally connected in Old Man Logan, or excuse me, Logan. That's the
Yeah.
title of the comic book. I
Yeah.
really enjoyed that run.
Yeah.
Um, that's probably also why I like it. But Days of Future Past, you're not getting
Hmm.
you're getting great acting all around, great casting, or good casting, not great casting. And things work. Nothing pulls you
Hmm.
out of the thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and yeah, and then we're probably rolling up on the end here, but yeah, if you watch the X-Men movies like we did over the weekend and are looking for some more X-Men, the current run of the comic book is a little convoluted a little bit, but they're all on this mutant island called Krakoa.
Oh
That's
yeah.
sort of their sanctuary. The titles that stand out to me, um, if you're looking for some good Wolverine, the Wolverine title is good, and it's also paired with X Force. Those two titles are kind of you know kind of connected. So if you're going to read one, you might want to read the other as well. And at this time, they're they've got Beast. He's kind of went rogue, and Wolverine has vowed to track down Beast and destroy him because because Beast made a brainless clone of Wolverine as a killing machine, and
I see.
he's also cloned himself so that he has his intelligence times 10 of 10 different beasts. And yeah, he's just kind of gone kind of megalomania. Kind of a different take on Beast. The Beast I know
Interesting.
is more fun loving and nice,
That's funny.
but yeah.
That's kind of like how they kind of they'll take like Peter Parker and then they'll kind of experiment a little bit with the with
Mhm.
well they did with Doc Ock and the
Yeah.
Superior Spider-Man and they did that a couple other times like where
Right.
he, instead of just being a poor thing he has Peter Parker blah blah blah, and like there's like also that version of Spider-Man, which is more enjoyable.
Right.
Because
Yeah.
it kind of like what they kind of puts a little bit more depth on the genius levelness of.
Yeah, yeah, it really depends on which writer is handling the character.
That's true.
They could put a kind of. I did recommend Jonathan Hickman's run on the Avengers last grab bag, and the only thing, and I gave it a really good review, really good science fiction epic. So kind of seek out the omnibus or the back issues if you're kind of interested in that. But his take on Spider-Man's really bad. Spider-Man is a really big smartass, to the point of him being a jackass in the comic book, which didn't work for me. But he only uses Spider-Man maybe in 2 or 3 issues, and he's only used very little, just to make a really bad and rude jokes. So yeah, yeah, he's not. Do not give Jonathan Hickman a Spider-Man title. But yeah, I think that's all I have to say about the X-Men. Do you have any closing thoughts?
I know I really enjoyed this one over X2. I thought X2 was fine too, and I remember seeing both in the theater. And upon review, I think the aging, I think in 10, 15, 20 years, I think this is gonna stand the test of time more than
Yeah,
the other one,
yeah,
for various reasons. I
yeah. I
think that
think
might. I
I
am
think that
biased a little
mhm,
bit for some of the acting and actors
yeah,
in here a little bit too.
yeah. I think the rating's close to what I would give it. On IMDb, it gives us 7.9. I'd probably give it a 7.5.
Yeah, that's fine with me. I don't have a problem with that. X2 though, I'd probably actually crank that down.
Yeah,
Like
yeah. It would be more of yeah,
one full grade down, to be
yeah.
honest with you.
Probably
6.4.
probably be a 5.5 or 6 for me. It's
Yeah.
passable. It's passable.
Yeah. I'd probably be a little bit more positive and just do 6.4, but I don't see that as a 7.4 versus the 7,
Yeah.
7.9, 8 almost on the other one. To me, it's closer. You could tell me it's an 8, and I wouldn't disagree. I'm
Hmm.
not going to fight that rating. I don't think
Yeah.
it's significant. But if you
We
gave
want to
this
do
one,
some kung fu fighting. All
yeah,
right.
yeah, but if somebody gave X2 an 8, I mean maybe that would be for nostalgia's sake,
Yep. Yep.
personal preference. But
You'd have to
I
maybe
think you
call
need the
in
rating.
Shang Chi, but
Yeah,
yeah. Uh,
yeah. Well, if they did, then nobody would watch it.
yeah. So
That one was
yeah.
kind of a stinker. Or the Eternals.
The Eternals. Yeah. But yeah. So yeah. Yeah, tell us what you think of the X Men. Am I nerddom? Am I being too harsh on everything? Let me know. If you enjoyed this, give us a like and subscribe. Like Mike said at the top of our podcast, we did attain a couple of subscribers each week. We seem to be picking up a few more at a time. So,
42.
yeah, yeah. So if you're newly subscribed, let us know what you think. And yeah, we always looking for engagement. In any way you want to engage with us, but
Yep.
yeah, just
Like
let
a
us know.
Rolling Stone.
Yep, and we do our podcast. We do our grab bag, which is like the name implies. It's a little bit of everything. Some reviews, some news items. We also do cringe corner every once in a while, where we look at something cringeworthy on the internet. I believe I have something for this. I just thought of it, so we'll add that in on our next one that you'll see on Wednesday. When there's a new trailer, we've started that may be interest to the nerdum. We'll spotlight it. We did do one live last week. We covered
You
the
did.
Dune trailer, which we've gotten quite a few views. It keeps
That's true.
climbing every day that I look at it. I think it's topped over 100 at this point. Um,
Oh, it has. Well, that's
yep.
great. That's awesome. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
I didn't. I forget. I kind of wish they would mash the live videos in the thing,
Right.
but
Yeah.
I
The
get.
regular videos. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But in any case, no cools. That's good. That's good. Yeah. No, I enjoyed it. Yeah, we're experimenting with that too. I think we're getting. I think we're starting to learn a thing or two. No, very humble because we're
Yep.
getting there. But yeah, I echo what you say. Thanks for plugging our stuff, and then we're about ready to jump into the grab bag here
Hmm.
on
Yep.
like Thomas said, we'll do it on Wednesday. So
Yeah, we
or
record
release
it
it, publish
now.
it on Wednesday.
We record it now. So if you see us in our same clothes, we're not slubs and have our same clothes on throughout the week. But yeah, we're not cartoon characters. But we'll we'll record it and release it on Wednesday, so you'll have a fresh grab bag on Wednesday to open up and see what we give you.
Yep. We'll see you in a bit.
Mm-hmm. Snick, snick.